Revolution has made a number of recommendations to basically put South Africa into the fourth industrial age. The first recommendation is invest in human capital, especially in the areas of the fourth industrial revolution. What do I mean by the areas of the fourth industrial revolution? Of course, there are a number of technologies that define the fourth industrial revolution. We have technologies in the cyberspace, AI, artificial intelligence, blockchain, quantum, computing, Internet of Things, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, the developments in the physical space, 3D printing, robotics, new materials, and graphene. And Mr. Lidija will know much more about this. The role of 3D printing in the build industry is becoming even much more important. In China, now we have entire blocks of buildings that are actually 3D printed. Robotics, we now know that in many countries, especially in China, you have robots that are able to build now. What is going to happen to all those people that we normally used to use for building? The role of new materials, for example. Cheap, affordable materials, yet strong. Again, these are the developments that are happening. So this is what the fourth industrial revolution is all about. Of course, for us, especially as educators, to get our people ready, there needs to be certain types of skills that are available. The first is complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, people management, coordinating with others, emotional intelligence, judgment and decision-making, service orientation, negotiation, and cognitive flexibility. This is what the World Economic Forum believes that our people must actually have in order for our people to be active players in the fourth industrial revolution. Are our universities actually teaching these skills? The second recommendation is to establish a National AI Institute that is going to look at the application of artificial intelligence in all areas of our economy, whether it is in the built industry, whether it is in the engineering space, whether it is in the medical space. All the spaces are being changed by this technology called artificial intelligence. And we believe that it can't work if it is only a government-led institution. The reasons are very clear. The reasons are simply because there seems to be more capabilities in the private spaces than in the public spaces. I'll give an example. Refilwe, an excellent engineer who is supposed to finish a PhD, he is in the private space, not the public space. So it is important that public-private partnerships are actually the defining principles when we establish this AI Institute. Now, what is this AI? Artificial intelligence is nothing but a technology that makes machines intelligent. Because these machines are intelligent, they are able to do the sort of tasks that are normally done by human beings. There are many types of artificial intelligence: machine learning, computational intelligence, soft computing, and you can actually categorize them according to the amount of data that they require in order to become intelligent. Computational intelligence almost requires no data at all. Soft computing requires limited amount of data. Machine learning requires huge amounts of data. And in the African continent, where we don't measure as much as we are supposed to measure, and we don't collect as much data as we are supposed to collect, it basically means we are actually starting on a disadvantaged footing. Now, deep learning is nothing but machine learning technology that works for large amounts of data. This is an example of an application of AI. We all remember the bridge, that temporary bridge in Senten that collapsed. Now, with AI, you can actually be able to put sensors that are going to measure the dynamics of the bridge and be able to predict whether a bridge such as this is about to collapse or not. Of course, this is not just the only application of AI. In the tendering system, we can be able to embed AI so that we can make the process fairer and much, much more effective. The issues of remote medicines, where you are able to help patients remotely using AI machines, will be very, very important, especially given the fact that in South Africa, we have limited number of doctors. Of course, AI can be able to make things efficient. The third recommendation is about establishing a platform for advanced manufacturing and new materials. We have actually been deindustrialized, and the Premier of Gauteng talks about the concept of reindustrialization. Why has South Africa deindustrialized? It's a combination of many, many things. I think it is also because many of our leaders are not engineers, and they have very little understanding of engineering. So what do we have to do? I think we have to embed the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution into our production. Our factories must have robots. Our, all aspects of our economy must actually adopt these technologies of the fourth industrial revolution. Despite all that, 14% of our GDP is still manufacturing. It can actually be more if we adopt these technologies. The issues of the automation are very, very important for us as we move forward. It's not a question of whether we should automate, because if we don't automate, we are not going to be competitive. It's what do we do with those people who are displaced by automation? How do we reskill them so that they still have a space in our economy? And there are many other industries such as mining, aerospace, electricity, where we can be able to use these technologies to monitor very, very key infrastructure. One of the projects that we have done in this regard is creating an AI system that is able to monitor the health status of a transformer. A transformer is a very important component of the electricity distribution process. And monitoring of critical infrastructure is also another issue. In fact, many of the maintenance-related problems that we are facing at Eskom can actually be handled through automation. It could be through automated monitoring. Because part of the reason why our systems tend to collapse is because we are running our systems, key infrastructure, until failure. And if we don't run them until failure, we remove the critical infrastructure before we are supposed to remove it, because the life cycle of any infrastructure actually has, on average, a safety factor of 2.5. So if you can be able to monitor that system, you can be able to use it beyond the recommended life cycle. Then we have the issue of data, secure and avail data to enable innovation. data is the new oil. That's what they say. If data is the new oil, and I can give you some of the examples why I say data is the new oil. If you look at companies such as Google, they are nothing but data companies. Companies such as Twitter, Facebook, they are data companies. Their model is basically collecting data from people and selling that data. Of course, if data is the new oil, what are we doing about our data in South Africa? I think we need to be thinking very, very strongly about data centers. Whether do we build data centers or do we buy clouds? If we buy clouds, what do we do about cybersecurity? What do we do about issues of privacy, and so on and so forth? And of course, given the fact that 5G technology is on our heels, we need to infuse that technology into our production. Then incentivize future industries, platforms, and applications of 4IR technologies. One economist was asked, explain the whole of economics in one word, and his answer was incentives. So the taxation is one incentives. The special economic zones is another incentives where you can say innovators come to this area and let us incentivize you to produce in this area. Some of these incentives may be access to research and development infrastructure. You know, the Africa Free Trade Agreement is a very important element that has come to play. And I think the built environment industry must start thinking about how do they use the expertise and the experience that they have in order to make that free trade agreement a reality. Very, very important because the African market is large. Build 4IR infrastructure, whether it is the issue of connectivity, spectrum becomes important, whether it is the computing infrastructure, high performance computing, whether it is the issue of any other infrastructure that is important for us to be able to position our people into the fourth industrial age. When I was a PhD student many years ago, 23 years ago, we had to write all the AI algorithms. But today, many of those AI algorithms are available for free. Google has a tool called TensorFlow that is able to, that you can be able to go and use as you wish. Of course, Huawei might have a different experience with the Android software, where when there was a trade war between the United States and China, all of a sudden, Donald Trump was saying they could not have Android with them. So it is still very important for us to be able to build these things on our own. Review and amend policy and legislation so that they are in line with the fourth industrial revolution, the ethics of it, the issues around data ownership. I'm sitting now on a committee that is developing ethical guidelines for the application of artificial intelligence for the World Health Organization. The regulation of automation, all this. And for our lawmakers to be able to do this, they need to actually be able to be scientifically and technologically literate. And one of the things that I will recommend President Lidika is that you need to go to our parliament and start educating them about what are some of the technological issues that our parliamentarians must be able to know so that they can be able to make legislations related to your industry that are much more effective. The last recommendation is really around implementation. As South Africans, we have lots of ideas, where we lack is implementation capabilities. And I challenge all of you here that you need to go and meet the Minister of Public Works so that you can develop an implementation coordinating system to make sure that our government becomes able to deal with some of the easiest issues that we have. Issues of potholes. How do we use 4IR technology? I was watching a car in Pretoria that has been developed, which basically drives in the street and is able to record the profile of our road in real time and be able to analyze that and send it to decision makers so that they can make the correct decisions. So on the implementation side, I think partnership, let's partner with government as the private sector, let's partner with universities so that we can be able to bring these technologies to the fore. Now, why has Africa lagged behind? Africa has lagged behind because of leadership. And we need to start thinking about what kind of leaders that we need in Africa so that we can be able to succeed. I think a leader of our time in this fourth industrial age must understand society, economy, politics, and technology. Very, very important. Such a leader must read and read widely, because in a knowledge-based economy that is changing very, very fast, reading and learning is actually a bedrock of the economy that is emerging. Such a leader must be hyper-passionate about the development of society. We need to build thinking skills, especially engineering thinking skills, that mindset of building of systems, of understanding systems and their connectivities, very, very important if we are to lead a modern state. Such a leader must be logical, quantitative, and execution-oriented. Very, very important. And that such a leader must be educated and be passionate about education. If there is one thing that explains the rise of China, it is their attitude towards education. Of course, putting engineers such as yourselves at the forefront of their leadership is another element. The current president of China is a chemical engineer. He actually succeeded Hu Jintao, who was a civil engineer. And Hu Jintao succeeded Jiang Zemin, who was an electrical engineer. That has put all these engineers, Refile, I am not campaigning for you. Such a leader must be an effective communicator, written, spoken, and technologic, and must understand the grand challenges confronting the world. So many of these ideas are in my books. You can find them at Exclusive Books. Leading in the 21st Century, the call for the new type of an African leader, Closing the Gap, that talks about the fourth industrial revolution in Africa, including in the built environment. And tomorrow, there will be a book at the Exclusive Book that we are launching, leadership lessons from books I have read. So, Niawonga, Kialibuwa, Diaribuwa.